This is the biggest breaking news morning in, about half a century in terms of the legal sphere. Because last night, Politico broke a story. And the story is stunning for two reasons. One, the content of what the Supreme Court is apparently ready to do. And two, the fact that it was leaked. We'll start with the second story first. So last night, Politico reported that a draft decision by Justice Samuel Alito that had achieved a majority of Supreme Court support, apparently 5 votes in favor, was to basically overrule Roe versus Wade. Not basically, entirely overrule Roe versus Wade, entirely overrule Planned Parenthood versus Casey, and return the issue of abortion to the state legislatures, where it originally resided. And the fact is that the Constitution of the United States has nothing to say about abortion, which means that states all over the United States had various laws with regard to how liberal they were going to be on abortion or whether they were going to ban the killing of the unborn entirely. That was the status of the law up until 1973, when the Supreme Court, on the basis of no precedent, on the basis of nothing in the constitutional text, on the basis of no real logic, decided to simply usurp the issue, and then top down, a bunch of non-elected judges decided that they were going to decide the issue for all of America. And they put in place this ridiculous viability standard that had nothing to do with reality. And then fast forward to Planned Parenthood versus Casey, and they put in place this undue burden standard, which again had nothing to do with the text of the Constitution or anything to do with the nation's history or biology or anything. So last night, Politico leaks that this decision by Samuel Alito has a majority support and is going to strike down Roe versus Wade. The leak is an unbelievable breach of every ethic the Supreme Court has ever held on to. It's insane. I mean, it's a crazy, crazy thing. Here's what Politico wrote. The Supreme Court has voted to strike down the landmark Roe versus Wade decision, according to an initial draft majority opinion written by Justice Samuel Alito, circulated inside the court and obtained by Politico. The draft opinion is a full-throated, unflinching repudiation of the 1973 decision, which guaranteed federal constitutional protections of abortion rights, and a subsequent 1992 decision, Planned Parenthood versus Casey, that largely maintained the right. Now, the fact that this was leaked is insane. No draft decision in the history of the court has been disclosed publicly while a case was still pending, according to Politico. Never. Never, ever. And it dramatically undermines the legitimacy of the court, because when you have draft decisions that are now being circulated, the idea is, and there's only one reason this happened, and I guarantee you 100% this came from some clerk on the left of the aisle. This came from, I would imagine, one of Justice Sonia Sotomayor's clerks, who decided to be a hero of the Republic and leak out the draft majority decision in the desperate hope that one of two things would happen. One, the public would bring such extraordinary pressure to bear on the justices voting in favor of Alito's opinion that one of them switched over, that you were able to leverage threats of violence, intimidation against these justices to get one of them to flip. Or two, you got Democrats in the Senate and the House and in state legislatures everywhere to immediately snap into place and start passing extraordinarily intrusive pro-abortion laws. And you're starting to see this happen, right? Democrats are already saying, well, we should just kill the filibuster and we should pass a federal law enshrining a right to abortion. That isn't going to happen, but that is what the call is from the left side of the aisle. That was the purpose of the leak. The leak is deliberately made in order to put these Supreme Court justices in danger and to jog Democrats to go ahead and pass some sort of federal law, making abortion the law of the land from the federal legislative level. That's what this was designed to do. The person who did this should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, to the extent that they've broken the law. You would imagine that this is a leak of certain classified information. I don't mean national security classified. I mean that when you are in a position with the federal government, you have to sign contracts that mean that you are not allowed to make public the private information that exists at the level of the government. This is true in virtually every government agency. At the very least, this is civil liability for the person who leaked this majority opinion. And it could theoretically be criminal. It should be referred to the FBI and the DOJ for full-scale investigation. Justice Roberts needs to lead the way on that. And if there's any evidence whatsoever that the clerk in this particular case did this at the behest of the justice, whichever justice allowed for this, if that's what happened here, that justice needs to be impeached. And that would be true no matter which side of the aisle we were talking about here. Now, the left, of course, will make the leaker the hero of the Republic because, as we know, the left is perfectly fine with illegal leaks so long as those illegal leaks cut in their favor. They're not a fan of totally non-illegal leaks like, say, Hunter Biden's laptop, but they are a very big fan of illegal leaks that harm Republicans and completely baseless leaks that harm Republicans. Totally fine with it. IRS leaks of tax information, totally fine with it. They're fine with disseminating the completely unverified Steele dossier for years on end in order to prop up a false narrative that Donald Trump was a stooge of the Russians. When it comes to a leak like this, you will imagine that this will be treated as heroism by the left. Yeah, but the bottom line is that this sort of leak dramatically undermines the court. No question about it. And it is designed, once again, to bring pressure on Supreme Court justices, which just demonstrates, for the left, the rule of law doesn't mean crap. They don't care about the rule of law. They never have cared about the rule of law. When they say that they care about the rule of law and quote-unquote democracy, what they mean is we want our way, period. And if that means that we breach the rule of law by having people leak out confidential Supreme Court internal draft decisions, and again, it's a draft decision, which means that it was likely going to change before it was finally issued. That's the purpose of a draft, is that it can be circulated, and then you have dissents written, and then the majority usually responds to the dissents. Okay, so this is not the final form of the opinion, even if this had been the basis of the opinion that eventually was issued by the court. The purpose is the intimidation. I mean, it is illegal. It dramatically undermines the legitimacy of the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court system completely. And of course, then you have the left saying we should kill the filibuster entirely, and we should just cram through a law. Slow clap for all of the norms of democracy must be upheld crew. Also of note, as we'll get to in a little while, Democrats are shrieking to the heavens, rending their garments, wailing, wearing sackcloth, pouring ashes upon their heads over the possibility that this issue is going to be returned to the states. They're saying this is the death of democracy. Just a quick definitional point. When voters get to vote on things, that's democracy. So the Supreme Court saying that voters now get to vote on things, that is not the death of democracy. That's a restoration of democracy. If you think that Republicans in charge of Congress and the Senate and the presidency in the absence of Roe are going to pass a nationwide abortion ban, and I'm as pro-life as anybody in America, on a political level, it ain't happening. The best that would happen, the best that you could hope for, is that they would start pushing back national bans on abortion. Right now, the only federal laws that are in place are like partial birth abortion bans. You might see that gradually pushed back to 20 weeks, 16 weeks, maybe even 10 weeks. The idea of a full-scale national federal ban on abortion, the country's just too divided for that. It's not going to happen politically. Okay, but when it comes to the states, that is where the issue is going to be solved. That is where the issue is going to happen. And what that's going to do on a political level, and this is a very good thing, it's going to lead to a continuation of the big sword. You know, there are a lot of people who are worried about the polarization of American society. You know what polarizes American society? When every issue has to be solved top-down. That's what polarizes American society. What polarizes American society on the federal national level is when I feel like my life here in Florida is being controlled by people in California. And when people in California feel like their life is being controlled by people in Florida. When I feel like there's a giant government gun that is pointed at me and my children by people who I don't live near and who don't care about my priorities and who disagree with me, that is a problem. The founders understood this, which is why they created a federalist structure whereby most law was done at the local and state level, not at the federal level. What the Supreme Court is doing is now returning the issue that is the most contentious issue in American life back to the state and local level for regulation, which is where it should be, barring on a constitutional legal level. On a moral level, I'm a believer that there should be a constitutional amendment to protect human life in the womb. But barring that, the system provides for the states and the localities to make these decisions. And the fact that the Supreme Court is now abiding by its own role in interpreting the law rather than just imposing it top down. The fact that the left finds this shocking or upsetting is amazing to me. And again, they keep saying things like, well, the people aren't with it. Well, now we're going to get a chance to find out. But you don't want to find out. That's the point. You liked it when the Supreme Court was doing your priors. You liked it when the Supreme Court was imposing its will top down. Again, the logic here is just insane. I'm reading Twitter, and some of these people... So Ian Bremmer tweeted, I'm conflicted on abortion as someone raised Catholic, anti-death penalty, who doesn't think there's a definitive answer on when human life begins. By the way, there is a definitive answer on when human life begins. It's at conception. There's no other scientific definition of human life beginning than that. He says, I think it should be a woman's decision. It's tragic the Supreme Court is taking that away. They're not taking that away. They're leaving it up to the voters of the particular states. And by the way, the notion that the only choice that matters in a woman's reproductive life is the choice to abort is crazy. That's a crazy lunacy. There are a series of decisions that women make throughout their lives about reproductive choice. When to have sex, when to get married, when to use contraception, when to get pregnant. The baseline idea, by the way, the left is giving away the game when they treat abortion this way. It used to be they treated abortion as sort of an evil that you had to tolerate because there were certain situations in which the baby was malformed or in which somebody was raped or was an incest case or these are difficult decisions. Now the left just admits it right out. It's a form of contraception for them, which demonstrates the evil. Because if you're using abortion as a form of contraception, one of the highest forms of moral evil I can imagine. If you're using abortion as a way to make your life more convenient, this makes you a bad person, definitionally. You're not doing it based on some extenuating circumstance. You're doing it just because it's convenient and you were too lazy to use contraception or because the condom failed or something. That is a serious moral issue with you. The fact that you want that established by the Supreme Court is madness. And it demonstrates disdain for morality, for basic decency, and most of all for the constitutional structure. This was not what the Supreme Court was meant to do. And for all those who say that the Supreme Court's legitimacy has been undermined here, no. If the Supreme Court goes this way, the Supreme Court's legitimacy has been restored because their job is to look at the Constitution's text and its history and to interpret what the words mean. It is not to do your political priors. That's not what the Constitution is meant to do. And them going back to their role would be a welcome sight. You want a restoration of institutions in America and institutional trust? Institutions are supposed to do what they're supposed to do. You're not supposed to have departments of health and human services that cram down puberty blockers on children. You're not supposed to have departments of Homeland Security that open the borders. And you're not supposed to have a Supreme Court of the United States that acts as a super legislature on behalf of Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden to do all of their political priors. You want trust in institutions? Restrict the institutions to doing what the institutions were meant to do. That's what this decision would do. So I'm honestly good for the courage of the people who are voting in favor. No good on John Roberts, who continues to be just a disgrace to his office if he votes as we think he's going to vote in this case. And whoever leaked this decision should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law because it is a fulsome attempt to undermine the rule of law by leveraging threats and imprecations against sitting Supreme Court justices. I hope you enjoyed that clip from The Ben Shapiro Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you stay up to date with all our future content.